1:15. This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The news edited by Dulmin Samarasinghe, read by Soundithavam. The government has spent 138 billion rupees for the treatment and the prevention of COVID-19. 200 million units of electricity generated following the heavy rains experienced recently. Farmers will be allowed to transport their harvest to the dedicated economic centres tomorrow. In foreign news, half of the US at least partially vaccinated. In sports, it's European football. Away goals could be scrapped in UFA's club competitions. State Minister Jetniwad Cabral says that the government has spent 138 billion rupees so far for the treatment and the prevention of COVID pandemic. More than 56,000 million rupees has been spent on low-income recipient families affected by the pandemic during the months of April and May. The State Minister said that another 14 million rupees has been spent on the controlling the pandemic in April. The chairman of the Ceylon Electricity Board, Vijitha Herat, says that 200 million units of electricity were generated following the heavy rains experienced recently. He said that certain media are spreading false propaganda stating that the Norachole power station has been deactivated. He said it is totally false. He added that electricity is presently generated by wind power plants and hydropower plants. State Minister of Agriculture Shashindra Rajapaksa says that farmers will be able and allowed to transport their harvest to the dedicated economic centres tomorrow. Accordingly, mobile sellers who have been permitted through district secretaries and divisional secretaries to carry out distribution will be allowed to purchase vegetables and fruits from the dedicated economic centres on Monday. Those who are working in essential services designated by the government will also be allowed to purchase from the dedicated economic centres on Monday. The private sector has been given permission to operate mobile vehicles to distribute essential goods. Minister Johnston Fernandes said that the divisional secretary should issue permits to them covering all areas. The district secretaries and divisional secretaries are entrusted with providing essential goods to the public. The minister said that it is the responsibility of those officials to take appropriate measures without inconveniencing the public. This news broadcast comes to you from the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. The chairman of the Manning Market Traders Association, Lal Hetchige, said that the Colombo Manning Market will be kept open tomorrow and the day after. Only wholesale trading will take place. Those who are engaged in essential services can purchase vegetables from the market by producing their service identity cards. The highest number of 512 COVID patients have been reported yesterday from the Kalutara district. Health authorities have identified 443 patients from the Gampaha district. 281 have been identified from the Colombo district. The police media spokesman DIG Ajit Rohanas says that 793 persons were arrested for violating quarantine regulations during the last 24 hours. He said that more than 16,000 have been arrested so far in connection with the offence. That's local news.
A mother knows the pain of each member of the family. Siddhalepa, the trusted relief for aches and pains.
An effective therapy for relief from cold, sneezing, flu, headaches, swelling due to toothaches, rheumatic, discomforts, and muscular aches and pains. Siddhalepa, the Veda Mahatmya in every home.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Veda Mahatmya.
Minister Kelia Rambokwala says that the only way to save the people from the pandemic is to vaccinate everyone. He said that the government will take steps to vaccinate everyone. He pointed out that the global demand for the vaccine has delayed the country receiving it and came to you in the main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Veda Mahatmya. Brush your teeth twice a day for healthy teeth and gums. Supiriviki and Kakulu, your trusted brands in oral care for many years.
Supiriviki Ayurvedic toothpaste for adults. Kakulu Ayurvedic toothpaste for kids. 9 Ayurvedic ingredients of Supiriviki will protect your teeth and strengthen your gums. Supiriviki and Kakulu, products from Siddhalepa.
On to Watchlight, the government says a mechanism is in place to supply goods to the public through Lanka Satos outlets despite the imposition of travel restrictions. The public can order their purchases over hotline number 1998. That's a hotline number 1998 and came to you in Watchlight. Moving on to a bulletin of world news. In the headlines, half of the US at least partially vaccinated. Germany recognizes Namibia killings as genocide. And a WTO panel is to address Australia-China Bali row. The US Centers for Disease Control and Prevention says half of the country's population has received at least one dose of a coronavirus vaccine. Data presented by the CDC shows that more than 166 million residents, or 50.1% of the population, had received at least one shot as of yesterday. More than 133 million people, or 40.2% of the population, have been fully inoculated, including those who received the second dose of a vaccine requiring 2 shots. By age group, 74.5% of people 65 or older have completed the required number of inoculations. Germany has officially recognized its killings of tens of thousands of people in colonial Namibia as genocide and offered an apology. The victims belong to the Herero and Nama peoples. German soldiers carried out the massacres between 1904 and 1908 in reprisal for an uprising against colonial rule. German Foreign Minister Heiko Maas said yesterday that in light of its historical and moral responsibility, his country would ask Namibia and the descendants of the victims for forgiveness. The World Trade Organization agreed yesterday to set up a dispute settlement panel over tariffs China slapped on imports of Australian barley. Australia filed an appeal to the WTO in December, saying China's decision to impose anti-dumping tariffs on its barley violates international trade rules. The two countries have been holding discussions in accordance with the WTO's dispute settlement procedures, but failed to reach a solution. The establishment of a panel is the next step in the WTO's dispute resolution process. Back to the headlines of the world news. Half of the US at least partially vaccinated. Germany recognizes Namibia killings as genocide. And a WTO panel is to address Australia-China Bali row. That concludes this bulletin of world news. On to development news. Sri Lanka's agriculture sector is scheduled to receive fresh impetus, with the Ministry of Finance and the World Bank having signed a new grant from the European Union. The grant that will support the agriculture sector modernisation project is a part of the EU's €25 million support to the $125 million project. The funds will be administered by the World Bank and will be supported the expansion of agriculture clusters in Kandy, Badulla, Ampara, Kilinochchi and the Vavuniya districts. That came to you in development news.
Sports News is brought to you by...
When Aya bought a motorbike, he bought 2 helmets. So sweet of him. I'm sure the other one is for me.
In whatever we do, we Sri Lankans are always thinking of others. When we get Munchie Super Cream Crackers, they're not just for ourselves. Munchie Super Cream Cracker. Super kiyanne nikan neve.
The away goals rule in European football has moved a step closer to being scrapped after UEFA's Club Competitions Committee decided to abolish it. The rule, used since 1965, decides drawn 2-leg games by favouring the team that scores the most away goals. Both Juventus and Bayern Munich were knocked out of the 2020-2021 Champions League by this method. The decision will be taken to UEFA's Executive Committee for approval and came to you in Sports News. Business News up next.
My wife always sets a full lunch table, even if it's just the two of us. She always expects people to drop by, like maybe the army.
In whatever we do, we Sri Lankans are always thinking of others. When we get Munchie Super Cream Crackers, they're not just for ourselves. Munchie Super Cream Cracker. Super kiyanne nikan neve.
Contributory deposit of ₹1,000 from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply. Business News. Sponsored by National Savings Bank. The safest place for your money.
The ambassador of Sri Lanka to the Sultanate of Oman, Amir Ajwad, launched a new brand, Ceylon Cinnamon Tea, at the Almira hypermarket in Muscat, Oman on the 21st of May to coincide with International Tea Day. He also distributed Ceylon tea-dyed face masks, which were recently introduced by the Sri Lanka Tea Board among the participants during the launch. Ceylon cinnamon tea is a product of Cinnamon One Private Limited in Sri Lanka and imported by Dynamic Global Service LLC in Oman. That's business news. We look at economic news next.
Business News, sponsored by National Savings Bank, the safest place for your money. Contributory deposit of 1,000 rupees from NSB when your child enters grade 1. Open a Hapan Children's Service account for your kid today. Higher interest. Conditions apply.
Economic news, courtesy of...
I bought my daughter a laptop for her work by managing my finances. Whatever the expenses may be, I can't afford to miss out on life's special moments like her birthday or our anniversary. So you need to invest to make your family's future flourish.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibilities. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
Sri Lanka plans to bring around 1,000 foreign and local investors to one platform to discuss the potential investment opportunities in the country in an investment forum 2021. The Sri Lanka Ceylon Chambers of Commerce, the Board of Investment and the Colombo Stock Exchange is holding a 3-day virtual investment forum to inform investors about the potential foreign direct investments as well as in listed companies and private equity. The forum will be conducted virtually from the 7th to the 9th of June. That's economic news.
Saving money isn't easy when you have responsibility. That's why we promise to give you the best returns and guarantee on your investment. LOLC Finance Fixed Deposits. Maximize your savings. LOLC Finance PLC, incorporated on the 13th of December 2001, is rated SLA stable by ICRA Lanka Limited and is licensed by the Monetary Board of the Central Bank of Sri Lanka under the Finance Business Act number 42 of 2011.
Weather Report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
The Met Department says that showers will occur at times in the Sabaragama province and in the Nuwara and Kandy districts. Fairly heavy falls, about 50 millimeters, can be expected at some places in these areas. Several spells of showers will occur in the western and northwestern provinces and in the Gaul and Matara districts. Showers or thundershowers will occur at a few places in the Uva province and the Ampara and Bachiklo districts during the evening or night. The wind speed can increase up to 40 kilometers per hour at times in the western slopes of the Central Hills, northwestern province and in the Hambantota district.
Weather Report was sponsored by
Dialogue, in partnership with the Ministry of Education, introduces Nanasa, a trilingual educational mobile app with video-based lessons for grade 1 to A-levels. Now your child can study with ease on your mobile with no subscription fee.
To conclude this bulletin of news, a recap of the headlines. The government has spent 138 billion rupees for the treatment and the prevention of COVID-19. 200 million units of electricity generated following the heavy rains experienced recently. Farmers will be allowed to transport their harvest to the dedicated economic centres tomorrow. Half of the US at least partially vaccinated. Away goals could be scrapped in UFA's club competitions.